The station was not meant to be quiet. Alarms were supposed to scream. Lights were supposed to flash. People were supposed to be running. But now there was only a deep hum and the slow shake of metal tearing itself apart. The human engineer stood alone in the narrow control hall. Smoke drifted around him in thin gray lines. His ears rang and his hands shook, but his mind was clear. The evacuation shuttle was already gone. That was the important thing. He looked at the timer above the main power core. Red numbers counted down in a steady rhythm. 4 minutes left before overload. 4 minutes before the station would break open and fall into the gas giant below. He pressed his back against the cold wall and took a slow breath. The mission had never been meant to end like this. It was supposed to be a simple rescue. A neutral trade station had gone silent near the border zone. Human command believed pirates were involved. What they did not expect was a three-way clash between alien forces, each blaming the other. The humans arrived at the worst possible moment. By the time weapons fire stopped, the station was already dying. The engineer remembered the faces of his crew as he sealed the blast doors. Some were injured. One was crying. Another tried to argue with him, shouting that they could fix the core together, but there was not enough time. Someone had to stay. He reached up and disabled the last safety lock. The core's energy rose sharply. Warning symbols filled the screen, written in alien script he barely understood. He had learned enough to know what they meant. No return. His name would never be recorded in any heroic report. The mission logs would list him as lost. Maybe later, someone would say he was brave. He did not care about that. He only cared that the shuttle had escaped. The station shuddered hard. Metal screamed somewhere deep inside. The floor cracked under his boots. He thought about Earth. Not in big ideas. Not about nations or flags. He thought about rain hitting old streets. He thought about cheap food stalls and loud arguments and quiet nights when nothing happened at all. He smiled once. Then the core ruptured. White light filled everything. The explosion ripped through the station like a silent storm. Energy tore metal apart, folding corridors into nothing. The control hall vanished in a wave of heat. His body was thrown backward, crushed, burned, and broken all at once. And then there was nothing. No light. No sound. No pain. Time did not exist. For 60 minutes, his heart did not beat. For 60 minutes, his brain showed no activity. For 60 minutes, every rule of human biology said he was gone. When the rescue shuttle reached a safe distance, the crew watched the station collapse into the planet's gravity. No one spoke. They already knew who had stayed behind. Hours later, human medical ships arrived. They recovered bodies from the outer wreckage. Most were unrecognizable. They did not expect to find him. He was discovered inside a sealed emergency pocket formed when two walls bent together during the explosion. His body temperature was low. His skin was pale. There was no pulse. Still, protocol demanded transport. Doctors worked without hope. Machines showed flat lines. Scans showed massive damage. 60 minutes passed, then 70. A junior medic noticed something strange. Tiny electrical signals flickered deep inside his chest. Not a heartbeat. Something else. They tried again. Shock pads fired. Artificial blood flow resumed. After 87 minutes, his heart jerked once, then again. Then it began to beat on its own. The medical room fell silent. No one spoke for a long time. He woke. 2 days later, he did not scream. He did not panic. He opened his eyes slowly and stared at the ceiling as if he had only been asleep. Doctors ran tests. Scans showed healing patterns they could not explain. Burned tissue had rebuilt itself. Broken bones were fused cleanly, without scars. There were no foreign objects, no implants, no alien machines. Just a human body that should not exist. Command classified the incident immediately. Interviews were limited. Records were sealed. The crew was ordered not to speak. He was told the official story, a rare medical miracle. Extreme conditions, unknown factors. He accepted it. What else could he do? After months of recovery, he returned to Earth. No medals. No ceremonies, just a quiet discharge and a suggestion to live a normal life. He did exactly that. Years passed. Transport scheduling, cargo routing, nothing dangerous, nothing important. Sometimes he felt strange. Cuts healed too fast. Bruises faded in hours. He could go days without sleep if needed. He never told anyone. He dreamed sometimes of fire and white light, of standing in a place with no shape, where something unseen watched him without eyes. Those dreams always ended the same way, with a feeling that something had been decided. 15 years after the station disaster far beyond human space, an ancient system activated. It was not a machine in the human sense. It was older than empires, older than recorded history. It had been built to observe one thing only: sacrifice. The system replayed a moment from long ago, a human standing alone, a choice made without command. A life given freely. It marked the event. Then it searched for the result. The human was still alive. This caused hesitation. The system had not predicted survival. Death was expected. Death was required, but the rules were clear. If one crossed the boundary and returned, the judgment must be updated. A signal was sent. Across the galaxy in a falling empire, alarms whispered instead of screamed. Scholars froze when they saw the mark. Soldiers went silent. A royal council reached a final decision. The princess would be sent. Not to allies, not to safety, but to the world of the man who died and came back. On Earth, the man sat alone in a small apartment, reviewing shipping data on an old screen. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window. He did not look up when the sky changed. High above the planet, something entered the atmosphere, wrapped in fire, carrying a destiny older than humanity itself. And the universe watched to see what the dead man would do next. 15 years had passed since the human engineer had survived what should have killed him. The world moved on. Dead. People forgot the small station near the gas giant. They forgot the crew who had vanished. He lived quietly, almost invisibly, carrying the memories of a life that had nearly ended. He worked in shipping and logistics. Every day he mapped routes for cargo ships, checked schedules, and made sure that deliveries were on time. It was simple, ordinary work. He liked it because it was predictable. Life had been unpredictable enough before. Sometimes at night, he felt a strange restlessness. He woke from dreams of fire and white light, and of a presence watching him from somewhere beyond the stars. The dreams left a cold ache in his chest. He told no one. He did not understand. Meanwhile, far from Earth, chaos had spread across a distant galaxy. An empire, once powerful and united, was collapsing. Civil war tore at its borders. Different factions fought over planets, resources, and power. The royal family was targeted. One by one, members of the ruling line disappeared or were captured. A child of the royal bloodline survived. She was a young princess, barely old enough to understand the danger, yet sharp and clever beyond her years. She had been hidden, trained, and prepared for a journey she did not fully understand. Her life capsule was built to survive anything. It could fly through fire, radiation, and vacuum. It could evade detection by the most advanced sensors. The designers had programmed it for one purpose: reach a safe world. Not a planet of her empire, not a trusted ally. A planet no one expected. That planet was Earth. The capsule drifted silently through space. Its surface reflected starlight, like a shard of silver glass. It moved as if guided by thought rather than machines. The princess lay inside, awake, feeling the gentle hum of the life support. Her small hands clutched the straps that held her in place. She could not see the stars, only the blinking lights inside the capsule. She had learned to stay calm, to breathe slowly, to think clearly. But sometimes her heart raced. She wondered if she would survive the trip, if she would see her family again, if she would ever feel safe. On Earth, the human engineer did not know any of this. He went about his days quietly, taking small pleasures in the ordinary. He liked to watch the rain, feel the cool wind, and listen to children laughing in the streets. His life was small, but it was his. Then, one night, the sky changed. A bright streak appeared far above the clouds. It moved fast, burning across the sky like a falling star. It did not fade. It did not change direction. It descended steadily, with a power that felt both beautiful and terrible. He saw it from his window. Something deep in his chest reacted, a memory he did not understand. A sense of danger and purpose, as if the universe itself had remembered him. The capsule hit a remote forest region. Trees cracked under the impact. Earth shook. Animals fled. Smoke rose in thin lines. The princess's capsule did not break. It had been designed to survive this, to protect her no matter what. Within hours, humans arrived. Local authorities and scientists came to investigate. They had no idea what they were about to find. Their sensors detected life inside the wreckage. It was not human life. The princess emerged, small, frightened, and injured. She looked around with large, intelligent eyes. She spoke in a voice strange to human ears, but her translators worked. She said her first words in the human language, a name. It was the engineer's name. He did not understand at first. How could this alien child know his name? He had lived quietly for 15 years. He had been forgotten by his world, yet somehow, far beyond the stars, she had been taught to find him, to trust him, to call him by name. Authorities gathered around, confused and cautious. They did not know what she was or where she had come from. Some suggested she might be a refugee from a distant conflict. Others feared she could be a spy. The princess looked at him with wide, solemn eyes. She told him that she had been sent to him, that he had been chosen not by humans, not by Earth, but by forces older than any government. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to return to his quiet life and pretend this had not happened. But her gaze made him pause. There was no fear in it, only trust and need. In that moment, he realized something he had not understood in all his years. His survival had changed more than himself. It had changed the galaxy, though he had not known it. The simple act of living after death had triggered something immense. Above them in orbit, alien ships approached. They were fast, sleek, and armed. They demanded the princess be surrendered immediately. Their messages were clear, unyielding, and full of authority. Humans and the engineer did not respond immediately. They needed time to understand. But the princess whispered one thing that no one else could hear. "They are coming for me because of you." The engineer felt a chill run down his spine. He had survived the impossible, walked back from death itself, and now the universe had sent a responsibility he could not ignore. He did not speak. He only watched the sky as the alien ships grew larger, dark silhouettes against the stars. He felt the old fire return, the same fire that had burned when he had stayed behind on the dying station. This time he would not stand alone. The princess moved closer to him. She did not need protection from humans. She needed guidance, someone who had proven that survival was not about strength, but about courage, choice, and sacrifice. For the first time in 15 years, he understood what his life had prepared him for. The world around them was quiet. The rain had stopped. The wind was still. But far above, the sky was full of watchers, ready to demand a child and reclaim what had been taken. And for the first time in 15 years, the engineer was ready to fight, not for himself, but for someone who trusted him completely, even without knowing him. The universe had begun its reckoning. Earth had no idea it was already part of a war older than time itself. And the engineer, the man who had died for 60 minutes, knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The capsule lay in the middle of the forest, like a fallen star. Its surface was scorched but intact. Smoke curled from a small vent at the top, and the hum of life support was steady, almost alive. The princess stayed inside for a moment, her small hands gripping the straps, her eyes wide as she listened to the wind in the trees. Every sound was sharper here than it had been in space, every smell stronger, every shadow deeper. The man, the engineer who had survived 60 minutes of death, knelt a few feet away. His fingers brushed a piece of scorched metal. He did not touch the capsule at first. Something in him hesitated. 15 years of quiet, ordinary life had taught him to avoid chaos. But this was chaos, pure and undeniable. The princess moved suddenly, almost falling as she pushed herself out of the capsule. Her legs were wobbly. She leaned on the man's arm instinctively. Her voice was soft but clear through the translator. "You are him," she said. He blinked. His hand tightened around hers. He shook his head slowly, still trying to grasp what was happening. I don't understand. Who sent you? How do you know me?" Her eyes did not leave his. They were not the wide, fearful eyes of a child. There was intelligence there, deep and steady. "I was taught to find the one who walked back from death. You are the only one who could protect me." The words felt impossible. He had lived quietly, avoided recognition, avoided attention. He had been forgotten by his world, and yet, somehow, far across the galaxy, this small alien child had been sent to him. Above them, the first alien scouts arrived. They hovered in the thin sky, shapes dark against the stars that had begun to fade with dawn. Their ships were elegant, fast, and dangerous. Weapons glinted even from this distance. The humans with him froze, unsure whether to engage or retreat. The princess tugged gently at his sleeve. "They are not coming to talk," she whispered. "They want me. They will not wait." The man nodded. He had faced danger before. He had stared into the cold face of death and survived. But this was different. He was no longer alone. A life depended on him, and that life was unfamiliar, alien, yet tied to a destiny he did not fully understand. He glanced at the small group of human authorities nearby. They carried rifles and scanners, and their faces were tense. They had never seen technology like this, nor life like hers. They debated in quiet, urgent voices. Some suggested capturing the princess for study. Others suggested handing her over. The man did not listen to them. He only listened to her. She did not speak again, but her eyes told him everything. Trust me, I am here because of you. You cannot fail. The aliens above began to descend, faster now, swooping low. Their intention was clear. They were prepared to take the child by force if necessary. The man stood. He felt something familiar in his chest, the same fire that had burned on the dying station, the same determination that had kept him alive after 60 minutes without a heartbeat. He was not afraid. Not yet. He reached for a communicator and spoke directly to the human commander. "We are not surrendering," he said. His voice was calm, even, but there was no mistaking the firmness in it. "You will protect her. We will not hand her over." The commander hesitated. "Do you understand what you are saying? These ships—" "They are not here yet," the man interrupted. "And when they arrive, we will be ready." The princess watched him. She did not smile, but she seemed relieved. Somehow she had expected this. Somehow she had known that the man who returned from death would never step aside when duty called. The aliens landed briefly in the forest, their ships touching the ground with silent grace. Soldiers emerged, armed with weapons that glowed with energy. Their uniforms were dark, their movements precise. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to take what they wanted. The humans formed a line in front of the capsule. Civilians were moved back. Some pointed weapons, but many just watched, unsure of what they could do. The princess held the man's hand. He felt the warmth of her small fingers against his own. She whispered, "Do not fail me." He shook his head. "I will not." The aliens spoke in their own language, sharp and commanding. Their translators rendered it into human words. "Surrender the child. She belongs to the Empire. Resistance will be punished." The man stepped forward. "No," he said. The word was simple, but it carried more weight than any weapon. "She is not yours. She is under my protection." A soldier stepped closer, weapon raised. The man did not flinch. He took a deep breath, remembering the station, the fire, the explosion, the moment when life had left him for 60 minutes. He remembered the choice he had made, and he remembered what it had taught him. "You do not understand humans," he said. "We do not abandon those who need us. Not ever." The alien soldier hesitated. Something in his words, something in his presence, made the soldier pause. The princess's eyes glowed faintly. She had learned more than words could say. She was connected to the system that had marked the man 15 years ago. His survival had changed something in the galaxy, and she was proof of it. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The wind stopped. Birds did not chirp. Even the humans, tense and afraid, felt the weight of the moment. The aliens made a final move. They raised their weapons, and the air shimmered with energy. It was clear now. They would not wait. They would take the child by force if they had to. The man did not flinch. He stepped closer to the princess. He whispered, "Stay close to me." She nodded. Her small body pressed against his side. She trusted him completely, though she had known him for only moments. The first shots fired, cutting through the air with light and sound. Humans dove for cover. Trees split under the energy blasts. Smoke and sparks filled the forest. The man moved like a shadow, pulling the princess behind him, ducking, weaving, using every instinct he had learned from years of survival. His mind was sharp, focused. He could see openings, predict movements, and act faster than most could. The princess watched, silently learning. She realized that humans fought differently than her people. They were unpredictable. They endured pain. They adapted instantly. They protected life even when it seemed hopeless. Minutes passed. The aliens did not retreat. They advanced, pushing through trees, their weapons flashing. The humans with the man did what they could, but it was clear they were outmatched. Then the man made a decision. He grabbed a small device from his pocket, a makeshift electromagnetic pulse generator he had tinkered with for emergencies. He activated it. A wave of energy rippled through the forest. Alien weapons flickered and died. Their sensors lost connection. Their coordination broke. For a few precious moments, the humans had the advantage. The man seized the opportunity. He led the princess and a small group of humans through a hidden path he had memorized from a previous mapping expedition. It wound through thick trees, over streams, and past jagged rocks. They moved fast, silent except for their breathing and the rush of adrenaline. The princess glanced up at him. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. He smiled faintly, without humor. "Because someone once helped me. And because the world is better when people protect each other. That is what I learned when I came back." Her eyes shone. She understood, though she was only a child. The lessons of survival, courage, and sacrifice were universal. The aliens regrouped, scanning the forest, calling for reinforcements. The man and the princess were not safe yet. Every step forward was a risk. But he felt something he had not felt in years. Certainty. The human engineer, who had died for 60 minutes and returned, knew that this was only the beginning. A small, terrified princess, a galaxy at war, and alien ships above were not the end of the story. They were the start, and he would not fail. The forest fell silent behind them. The alien ships hovered, waiting. The humans moved with careful precision. The princess held tight to the man's hand. Together they ran into the unknown, toward a destiny that neither fully understood, but both were determined to face. Somewhere in the galaxy, systems older than stars watched and waited. The man's survival had marked him. The child had been sent because of him. The story was not over. It had only just begun. The forest grew quiet again, but the tension hung heavy. The human engineer and the princess moved quickly, silently, using paths few had traveled before. He led her through streams and over fallen trees, avoiding areas where the alien scouts might detect them. Every step was calculated, every sound measured. He had learned long ago that survival required patience and attention to detail. The princess clung to his side. She was small and fragile compared to the humans and aliens around them, yet there was something in her eyes, a sharpness, a cleverness, that made him trust her instincts. She noticed patterns in the forest, points of cover, sounds in the distance that even he missed. Slowly, they moved as a single unit, each protecting the other. Meanwhile, alien ships hovered above the tree line. They scanned the area with sensors and energy beams. Their commanders were frustrated. This world, small and seemingly weak, was resisting. The humans had no technology to match their own, no power to dominate. Yet the humans refused to surrender the child. They fought with courage that confused the invaders, persistence that defied logic, and patience that broke plans. The human engineer had faced impossible odds before. He had survived when death had taken him once. But now it was different. He was not alone, and the life he protected mattered more than his own. He realized that humans were strong not because of their weapons, not because of their speed or power, but because they would endure, they would adapt, they would sacrifice for one another. Hours passed. The humans regrouped at a small clearing far from the landing site. They set up temporary defenses using what little equipment they had. Trees became barriers. Rocks became shields. The forest became a maze designed to slow the aliens down. The princess watched quietly. She learned quickly. She understood that humans did not rely on technology alone. They relied on ingenuity, teamwork, and the will to survive. She had been raised to think in terms of power, rank, and obedience. The humans of Earth were different. They were free. The alien commanders communicated through loud, sharp signals. Their words, translated by the devices the humans had captured from earlier skirmishes, were clear. Surrender the child or face destruction. This world is not yours to protect. He did not flinch. His hand rested lightly on the princess's shoulder, a silent promise. "We will not surrender her," he said firmly. "Not to you. Not to anyone. She stays with us." The aliens hesitated. They had expected resistance, but not this level of determination. Their calculations assumed that humans would yield when faced with overwhelming force. They had assumed incorrectly. Night fell. Darkness wrapped the forest in shadow, and the humans moved carefully. They set traps using knowledge of the land and instinct honed over generations. The princess assisted, placing small devices and marking paths. She learned from the humans that courage was not just about facing enemies. It was about understanding your environment, thinking ahead, and protecting those who could not protect themselves. The first wave of alien scouts came under the cover of night. They moved silently through the trees, confident in their strength, but the humans were ready. Rocks fell, nets tangled, alarms triggered. The aliens were slowed, forced to retreat. Each encounter was brief but tense. Every human strike was precise and unexpected. The princess observed carefully. She noticed that humans were not the fastest or the strongest, yet they endured longer than their enemies. They adapted to each attack, learning quickly from mistakes. They did not panic when the unexpected happened. They protected each other above all else. The engineer realized that the aliens had underestimated him. They had calculated survival odds based on numbers and weapons, not on willpower. But humans were unpredictable. They were stubborn, clever, and capable of courage beyond measure. That was their advantage. By morning, the forest was quiet again. The humans had won small victories, slowing the alien advance. The princess was amazed. She had seen empires fall, fleets destroyed, and people surrender. Yet these humans refused to bow. They refused to let fear control them. The engineer sat with the princess for a moment, sharing a small meal scavenged from nearby supplies.
"You see," he said softly, "this is what humans are."
Not the machines we build, not the weapons we carry. It is what we do when we have nothing left, when the odds are impossible, when the world says we should fail. We endure, we protect. We fight in ways the enemy cannot predict." She nodded, absorbing the lesson. "Your survival. It changes everything. It brought me here. It shows them that humans are not weak." He smiled faintly. It was the first time in years he had smiled. It was never about me. It was about doing what was right. Sometimes that means facing death, even if you do not come back. Sometimes it means surviving when you should not. Above, the alien commanders watched. Their frustration grew. They did not understand this species. They did not understand that survival was more than numbers, that courage could not be measured in fleets or firepower. Humans were wild, unpredictable, and unyielding. The next day, the humans moved again. They traveled through narrow passes, avoiding open areas where the aliens could use their superior firepower. Each movement was careful, each step calculated. The princess learned quickly, following his lead and beginning to understand the human way of thinking. The aliens launched another strike. This time, they brought heavy weapons, intending to overwhelm the humans with force. But the humans were ready. Using the terrain, they created traps and ambushes. Rocks rolled, nets caught enemies, and energy blasts were redirected. The aliens found themselves frustrated at every turn. The engineer led the defense. Personally, his movements were quick and precise. He did not rely on brute strength, but on careful timing and clever tactics. The princess followed his lead, learning from his every action. She realized that humans did not rely solely on weapons. They relied on strategy, courage, and an instinctive understanding of survival. Hours passed. The forest echoed with the sounds of battle, yet the humans endured. They moved with purpose, never panicking, never yielding. They protected the princess at all costs, and she began to understand what it meant to fight, not just for yourself, but for someone else. The aliens withdrew temporarily. They regrouped and communicated in sharp bursts. Their commanders could not believe the persistence of the humans. Their calculations had predicted surrender, yet these humans continued to resist. They were not fast, not strong, not technologically superior, yet they were winning through courage, cleverness, and endurance. The princess looked at the engineer. "They cannot understand us," she said softly. "They do not know what humans are capable of." He nodded. "They will learn, and so will you. Humans fight differently. We protect what matters, even when it seems impossible. That is our strength." Night fell again. The humans made camp, careful to remain hidden. The princess sat close to the engineer, watching the stars. She was beginning to see the world differently. She saw humans not as weak, fragile creatures, but as survivors who endured, adapted, and protected each other above all else. The alien fleet did not leave. It lingered, waiting for an opportunity to strike. But the humans had proven something. They could survive, adapt, and resist even the most advanced forces. They had shown that courage and intelligence could defeat power and numbers. The princess understood that she had been sent here not just for protection, but to witness this strength. The engineer's survival had brought her to Earth, and his presence had taught her the lesson she needed. Humans were not weak. The engineer felt a deep sense of calm. He had faced death once and returned. He had lived quietly for 15 years, and now he was ready to defend life, to guide, to protect, and to teach. He understood the lesson himself. Survival was not just about living. It was about protecting, enduring, and showing courage even when the world expected failure. The forest was quiet again. The humans rested, but their vigilance never stopped. The princess sat beside the engineer, learning the ways of survival, courage, and strategy. Above, alien watchers waited, but they were confused. They did not understand humans, their strength, or their persistence, and the engineer knew that this was only the beginning. The struggle was far from over. The princess would need protection, guidance, and training, and the aliens would not give up easily. Yet, for the first time, the engineer smiled, not out of humor, but because he understood. Humans were strong, humans were clever, humans endured, and together they could face anything, even the stars themselves. The night stretched on. The forest was silent except for whispers of the wind and the quiet determination of humans who refused to fail. And somewhere far above, the alien commanders realized that the simple act of surviving and protecting one life had changed everything. This was the human way. The alien fleet had grown larger. It hung in the sky above the forest like a dark storm, ships so numerous that they blocked the sunlight. The humans had survived minor attacks before, but this was something different. This was a full-scale retrieval strike. Their purpose was clear: take the princess, no matter the cost. The human engineer stood at the edge of the clearing, the princess beside him. He had spent hours preparing, using the forest, the terrain, and every resource he could find. He had set traps, planned escape routes, and taught the humans around him how to defend themselves. But now, facing an entire fleet, it was more than preparation. It was a test of endurance, courage, and will. He looked at the princess. Her small hands clenched hers. Her eyes were bright, fierce, and intelligent. She had grown over the past days, learning more than any child her age should know. She had learned the human way: adapt, endure, and protect. "They will not give up," he said softly.
"I know," she replied. Her voice was calm, steady.
"But neither will we. Humans are different. I can see it now." Above, the alien ships advanced, and the first waves of attack began. Energy blasts rained down, striking trees and rock. Fires began to burn. The humans took cover, moving as they had practiced. The engineer led the defense personally. He moved quickly, dodging debris and directing humans to take the best positions. He was not the strongest, not the fastest, but he was precise, clever, and calm. Every decision he made was life or death. He had survived death once before, and that experience sharpened him. The princess watched. She understood now that humans fought differently than her people. They did not rely solely on weapons. They relied on strategy, intelligence, and the courage to act when others hesitated. The aliens struck again, this time with heavier weapons and more soldiers. They expected the humans to break. They had assumed that the weak, fragile species would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They had assumed incorrectly. The engineer moved among the humans, offering guidance, encouragement, and instruction. He showed them where to stand, when to move, and how to protect each other. He reminded them that survival was not just about strength. It was about endurance, adaptability, and protecting the ones who could not protect themselves. The princess followed his lead. She placed small devices, observed enemy patterns, and warned him of dangers. She was small and vulnerable, but she had begun to understand the human way. She had learned that courage was not about being fearless. It was about facing danger when it mattered most. Hours passed. The humans continued to resist, slowing the alien advance. They used the terrain to their advantage, luring enemy forces into traps, hiding, and striking unexpectedly. They had power, weapons, and numbers, yet the humans endured. The engineer realized that the aliens had underestimated them. They had calculated survival odds based on machines, fleets, and firepower, not on courage and ingenuity. Humans were unpredictable. They could survive, adapt, and protect others in ways the aliens did not understand. The princess observed closely. She had learned that humans were not weak, not fragile. They were survivors. They endured, protected each other, and fought even when the odds were impossible. The aliens regrouped and prepared for another strike. They were angry now, frustrated by the humans' persistence. They brought more weapons, larger soldiers, and advanced machines. They expected the humans to falter under pressure. The engineer knew that a single failure could be disastrous. The princess's life depended on him and on the humans who had come to trust him. He did not panic. He had survived once before when death seemed certain. He understood that calm thinking, strategy, and courage were stronger than fear. He gave clear commands. Humans moved quickly, quietly, and efficiently. They were not perfect, but they worked together. They adapted when plans failed, learned from mistakes, and protected one another at all costs. The princess followed closely. She realized that humans were different than the royal soldiers she had known. They were not trained for obedience. They were trained by experience, by instinct, and by choice. They fought not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to protect life and endure hardships. The alien fleet attacked again. This time, they brought heavy energy cannons. Trees and rocks exploded under the fire. Humans were thrown to the ground injured, but they did not stop. They continued to move, fight, and protect each other. The engineer led the counterattack. Using the terrain, timing, and careful observation, he directed the humans to strike at weak points. Energy cannons misfired, soldiers tripped into traps, and enemy machines were disabled. The aliens were confused. Their calculations had predicted easy victory, yet the humans continued to resist. The princess noticed something new in the humans. Their determination, their endurance, and their courage were infectious. She felt herself growing stronger, braver, and more determined. She had been sent here to survive, to learn, and now to see what humanity could do. The battle stretched on. Day turned into night. Fires burned. Smoke filled the air. Yet the humans continued. They adapted to each new attack, learning from each mistake. They moved with strategy and courage. The aliens became desperate. They realized that brute force alone would not succeed. Their numbers were large, their weapons advanced, but the humans endured. Their strategy, courage, and protection of each other allowed them to survive against impossible odds. The engineer knew that survival required more than weapons. It required understanding, adaptation, and endurance. He had survived death once. He had learned that life was about protecting others, acting when it mattered most, and enduring even when hope seemed lost. He moved to protect the princess as the aliens pressed forward. Her small hands clutched his arm, trusting him completely. He realized that the most important thing was not fighting for himself, but ensuring that she survived. The humans struck again, coordinated, precise, and clever. They disrupted enemy lines, created confusion, and protected each other. The aliens were forced to retreat temporarily. They were frustrated, exhausted, and confused. They had expected surrender, but the humans had shown that survival was not about weapons or numbers. The princess watched and learned. She had seen fleets fall, kingdoms crumble, and people surrender. Yet these humans endured. They fought not for power, but for life, for each other, and for what was right. The engineer realized that the aliens' misunderstanding of humans was their greatest weakness. They assumed that numbers and weapons determined victory. They had not calculated courage, endurance, and ingenuity. Humans had survived for centuries against greater odds. Humans protected life even when death seemed certain. As the night wore on, the humans rested briefly, but their vigilance never stopped. The princess stayed close to the engineer, learning the human way. She understood that courage was not fearlessness, but persistence, strategy, and protecting those who could not protect themselves. The alien fleet lingered above, planning the next strike. Yet they had learned something important. Humans were unpredictable. They adapted, endured, and protected life. They were stronger than expected, cleverer than anticipated, and more determined than the calculations had allowed. The princess looked at the engineer. "They cannot understand us," she said quietly.
He nodded. "No, they cannot."
"And that is why we survive. That is why humans endure. That is why we protect each other, even when the odds are impossible." Above the forest, the alien fleet waited. They had power, weapons, and numbers, but they had underestimated the humans' courage and ingenuity. The engineer and the princess knew that survival required more than fighting. It required strategy, endurance, and protecting life above all else. The night stretched on. The forest was silent except for the whispers of the wind and the quiet determination of humans who refused to surrender. The engineer held the princess close. He had survived death once. He had learned that life was not about self-preservation alone. It was about protecting, enduring, and acting when it mattered most. Somewhere above, the alien commanders realized that brute force alone could not defeat a species that refused to fail, that protected each other, and that endured against impossible odds. This was the human way. The engineer knew that this battle was far from over. The aliens would return, stronger and more prepared. But he also knew that humans could survive anything. Humans adapted. Humans endured. Humans protected what mattered most. And the princess, watching him, understood now. She had been sent to him not just for protection, but to witness what humanity could do, to learn that courage, endurance, and protection were greater than any weapon. And the humans, led by the man who had walked back from death, would face the next attack, not with fear, but with courage, ingenuity, and a determination that the stars themselves could not break. The morning light filtered through the forest, breaking the darkness but not the tension. The human engineer and the princess had survived the alien attacks, but the war was far from over. Above them, alien scouts still moved in the sky, searching for weakness, planning the next strike. Every sound in the forest was amplified. The humans moved carefully, understanding that the smallest mistake could cost lives. The princess had grown more confident in the past days. She had seen humans fight, endure, and protect each other against impossible odds. She had learned that courage was not about fearlessness, but about persistence and strategy. She understood now that survival required both intelligence and heart. The engineer watched her. She had changed. No longer just a frightened child. She carried herself with determination, curiosity, and sharp awareness. He felt pride, not in himself, but in what humans could teach others. Their resilience, ingenuity, and courage had shaped her understanding. The alien fleet above had regrouped. They had realized that brute force alone would not succeed. Their commanders had underestimated humans, thinking numbers and technology guaranteed victory. They had miscalculated. Humans endured in ways that could not be measured by machines or probability. The engineer gathered his team and the princess. "We have to move," he said quietly but firmly. "They will strike again. This time, it will be stronger. We need to stay ahead, protect her, and show them that we do not yield." The humans followed him silently. Each step was careful, deliberate. The forest provided cover, but it could not hide them completely. The alien sensors were advanced. They were fast, precise, and determined. But the humans were clever, unpredictable, and unyielding. The first wave of the new strike came at mid-morning. Alien machines and soldiers poured into the forest, weapons glowing and deadly. The humans had prepared. They lured the enemies into traps, used rocks and fallen trees for cover, and coordinated attacks to disable the alien machines. The princess stayed close to the engineer. She learned to move silently, to anticipate danger, and to assist. She was small, but her intelligence allowed her to contribute meaningfully. She set small devices that disrupted alien sensors, created noise to mislead, and guided humans through the safest paths. The battle was fierce. Trees fell, rocks split, and the ground shook. Energy blasts struck the earth around them, but the humans adapted quickly. They protected each other, rescued the wounded, and continued to fight with intelligence rather than brute force. The engineer felt a strange calm. He remembered the moment he had died for 60 minutes. He remembered the fire, the explosion, the moment when nothing remained. Yet he had returned. He had learned then what humans were capable of: endurance, courage, and the ability to protect life, even when hope seemed lost. Now he applied the lessons of his survival. He moved efficiently, anticipating enemy actions, directing humans with clarity and precision. He was not the strongest, but he was the one who could keep everyone alive. The aliens were surprised again. They had power, numbers, and weapons, but humans did not yield. They adapted, learned, and protected the life of the princess. Each mistake the aliens made was exploited by the humans. Each misstep was a chance to survive, a chance to endure. Hours passed. The humans continued to resist. The princess watched carefully, learning that courage was about action, not recklessness. She had been trained to follow orders, but she now understood that intelligence, observation, and endurance mattered more than rank or command. The alien commanders grew frustrated. Their calculations had predicted easy victory, yet humans persisted. They had fewer weapons, weaker machines, and smaller numbers, but they endured. They protected life when surrender seemed logical. They adapted when defeat appeared certain. The engineer realized the importance of this moment. Humans were not meant to conquer with power. They conquered by surviving, protecting, and enduring. The aliens could destroy machines, numbers, and technology, but they could not destroy the human spirit. As night approached, the aliens retreated temporarily. They regrouped, repaired, and planned. They would return stronger, but they now understood that this species was unlike any they had encountered. Humans survived against impossible odds, and they protected each other even at great personal risk. The engineer and the princess found a safe clearing. The humans rested, tending to wounds and preparing for the next strike. The princess sat close to him, her small hands resting on his arm. "I see it now," she said softly. "Humans are strong not because of weapons, but because of heart, courage, and will. You endure. You protect. You fight in ways the enemy cannot predict." The engineer nodded. "Yes, that is what humans are. That is what I learned when I returned. Life is about protecting others even when the odds are against you. Courage is not about being fearless. It is about acting when it matters most." The princess listened, absorbing every word. She understood now why she had been sent to him, not just for protection, but to witness what humans could do, to see that their strength was not in weapons, numbers, or machines, but in endurance, intelligence, and the will to survive. The alien fleet returned before dawn. This time they brought more ships, heavier weapons, and greater numbers. The humans prepared for the final confrontation. Every trap, every ambush, every tactic would be needed. Failure could mean the loss of the princess and the end of their survival. The battle began. Energy blasts filled the air. Trees exploded. The ground shook. Humans moved quickly, protecting each other, guiding the princess and striking at weaknesses in the alien formations. The engineer led the defense, precise, calm, and decisive. He had survived death once, and he would not fail again. The princess assisted, placing devices that disrupted alien sensors, guiding humans through safe paths, and observing enemy behavior. She had grown quickly, learning from humans what courage, strategy, and protection truly meant. The aliens were relentless. They had technology, numbers, and power, yet the humans adapted, endured, and protected each other. The engineer realized the aliens' mistake. They had assumed that strength alone could win. They had not accounted for human resilience. Hours passed. The battle continued without pause. Humans moved strategically, exploiting alien mistakes, protecting life, and surviving against impossible odds. The princess watched and learned, understanding that human strength was not physical but mental, emotional, and moral. At last, the aliens were forced to retreat. Their ships withdrew, leaving smoke and fire in the forest. They had power, but they could not conquer courage. They had numbers, but they could not outlast endurance. They had weapons, but they could not overcome the will to protect life. The humans survived. The princess survived, and she understood what the human engineer had known for years. Humans endure, adapt, and protect life in ways the universe cannot predict. The engineer sat quietly with the princess as the first light of day broke over the forest. He looked at her and said, "You see now, humans are not weak. We survive. We endure. We protect each other even when the world expects us to fail." The princess nodded. "I will remember this. I will remember what humans are capable of. I will take this lesson with me wherever I go." The humans began to tend to their wounded, repair what they could, and prepare for the future. The engineer knew that more threats would come. The universe would continue to test them, but he also knew that humans could survive anything. They endured, adapted, and protected life above all else. The princess stayed close to him. She had learned what courage, endurance, and protection meant. She had witnessed humans survive against impossible odds. She understood now that strength was not in numbers, technology, or rank, but in the will to survive and protect life. Above the forest, distant civilizations received signals from the battle. They saw humans endure, protect, and survive. They did not see a hero in a single man. They saw a species that could endure death itself, that protected life even when impossible, and that could change the balance of the galaxy with courage alone. The engineer looked up at the sky. He had survived death once. He had lived quietly for 15 years, and now he had led humans to protect life, endure, and demonstrate their strength to the universe. He understood that the story was bigger than one battle. It was about humanity itself. The princess smiled faintly. She had learned from humans that survival was not about fear, power, or obedience. It was about courage, endurance, and protection. She understood why she had been sent to Earth. She understood why he had survived. The forest was quiet again. Humans moved carefully, tending to life, protecting each other, and preparing for the future. The engineer stood tall. He had survived death. He had led humans to endure against impossible odds, and he had taught the princess the greatest lesson of all. Humans endure, adapt, and protect life, and no force in the universe can break that spirit. Somewhere far beyond the stars, civilizations watched and learned. The human species had survived, endured, and protected life. The universe understood now that humans were not weak, not fragile, and not predictable. The engineer, who had died for 60 minutes, smiled quietly. He did not seek recognition, power, or fame. He had survived to teach, to protect, and to endure. And humanity, through courage, strategy, and heart, had shown the universe its true strength. The princess stood beside him. She had been sent across the galaxy to witness what humans were capable of. She had learned the lesson. Humans survive when hope is gone, protect when others fall, and endure when the impossible comes. And the universe, watching from afar, understood something it had not known before. Do not underestimate humans. Do not challenge their courage, and do not think that endurance can be measured by numbers alone. Humans endure, humans protect, humans survive, and in that lesson the galaxy would never be the same again.